Welcome to the NLD Referee Society training module on match preparation and warm-up. Content from Mike Mulroy, the Society Training Officer, Hanbury Training and the RFU. So today we're going to have a look at why we should warm up, why it's so important and what it does for us. Well, we can break it down into two real distinct categories. The first is the professional and the second is the personal. And if we take those in turn, we must remember that players actually pay to play the game of rugby in the community game. That is to say that many of them will have to pay subs to join a club, be a member of a club. Some of those clubs will also have match fees that they charge. So every time the player actually plays, they pay a certain amount. And even to the point that some clubs, the players will buy their own kit as well. So it's really important that we keep that in the back of our mind and make sure that we are fit enough to match the game that they are going to play. That our fitness levels, our preparation levels, our knowledge and understanding is at least equal to that of the players that we're going to be refereeing. Otherwise, are we really being fair to those players? So we all see players going out and warming up for anything from 30 minutes to an hour before the game. But we must also prepare for the game in as much detail as the players do. Especially, we must be able to keep up mentally when the pressure is on, as well as physically. So when we look at the professional side of why we warm up and prepare, there was an interesting study done in the community game about the refereeing. So on average, we would be running at about 20 miles an hour, covering anything between 3 and 5 miles per game, with an average of 50 sprints per game. Obviously, this depends on the level and skill and even the conditions. But we know as well that most of our sprints tend to be between 5 and 15 meters. So it's important that we are ready for that and that we can explode and accelerate when we need to. With all that going on, we still need to make up to 2,000 decisions per game. So we have to be able to cope with all of those stresses and ask ourselves, are we prepared for our game? From a personal point of view, ask yourself where you want to be. We should all want to improve regardless of what level we're refereeing at the moment. And that's not to say we all should want to get to the very top, we all need to get to the very top, or we should all have those ambitions. We might be quite happy being a level 8 or 9 referee, don't want to go any further, maybe because you've done that already, or that's just where you're comfortable with your time, your ability and everything else. But we should still want to be the best referee that we can be at that point. So it's important that we maintain as referees our physical and our mental health so that we can keep performing in the game we love. You must ask yourself, not only are you being true to yourself, but are you being true to the players in the game as well? So warming up has a number of benefits. If you ever play with some blue tack and start to pull it apart, you'll find that it will stretch a little bit and then snap very easily. Whereas if you warm it up first, it becomes more elastic and you can stretch it a much longer distance. That's true for the muscles in our body as well. They need time to warm up. They need increased muscle temperature. So when we start to warm up, our blood vessels dilate, that improves the range of motion, and it also, we need to get the oxygen to the brain to improve our mental preparation. So as we warm up, blood flow increases around the body. The muscles receive more oxygen, and therefore the brain receives more oxygen, allowing us to cope with the decisions that we're going to have to be making. We know that if we don't warm up, we risk at least a 10% decrease in performance from the word go. Is that fair on the players that you're refereeing? So let's have a look at that warm-up in some detail. Warm-up really should take three distinct phases. They are the general mobility, a transition phase, and sport-specific, or what's often referred to as a dynamic phase. Now, each one of these phases should last around 5 minutes, with a little bit of a break of a minute or two in between each one, to get some water on board, just to shake out any lactic acid, and to make sure that we're getting more oxygen on board. So it's easy to see then that, this should be lasting between 17 and 20 minutes. That's important to know because you're going to have to program this into your pre-match routine to make sure that your briefings are done with the teams, you know where you're going to be warming up, and whether you've got to come back into the clubhouse to change tops and things like that. So make sure that you're arriving with plenty of time to note all of these things and to allow yourself adequate time to do a proper warm-up and preparation. So when we look at general mobility, what we're really doing is, let's say, start with some light jogging or cardio work. We want to make sure that we are actively stretching the muscles. Good examples of that are things like dynamic lunges and squats. But it's important that you settle on a personal routine that works for you. Find something that also focuses on any problem areas that you've got to ensure a free and full movement. Now, in a little while in this video, you'll actually see some of these exercises broken down, and at the end, you'll also see a warm-up from Hanbury Training. Now, they have plenty of different warm-ups, different exercises online, and we'll tell you all about those later on. But it's important that we start low and we build up. So once we've gone into the transition phase, we're going to make sure that we are stretching our legs more, that we are working on our straight line movement, and we are working on acceleration and deceleration, starting gently and building up to more intense acceleration and deceleration. After another quick break and some water, we're going to move on to our dynamic phase. So we're going to think about changes of direction, how we're going to move in the game, giving ourselves time to focus mentally. Make sure that you're increasing the intensity and the speed of your warm-up, and even use the teams to warm up. Look at their plays, look at the speed. If you can follow them for a couple of minutes, you'll find as they go through their warm-up routines where their ball's at a ruck situation goes out wide, you can watch to see what plays they're using. Do they often come inside? Do they always go wide? Do they have a runner coming in from fullback to cut across the 12 channel? So it helps you to prepare where not to stand or where you should stand during the game as well. Plus, they're going to be warming up at about 80–85% of their speed, and that gives you an indication of just how quick it's going to be. So make sure that you do this. It's really important and really good practice to focus a little bit of your time on those players. So let's have a look at the preparation. How are we going to make sure that we are mentally alert enough to cope with this game and get our mind focused on the game in hand? So you often see players who look very focused when they come off their warm-up and they come out after a big motivational speech in the changing rooms. There's nobody to do that for a referee who has a changing room on their own. So you need to do this yourself. So find a quiet area, first of all, in the pitch. Visualize the start of the game. What's going to happen? Well, clearly there's going to be a kickoff. Where am I going to stand for the kick? What's going to happen next? I'm going to run. What angle am I going to go? Where is the ball going? The ball's caught, runs forward, and there's a tackle. That tackle turns into a ruck. Ask yourselves these questions. Where are you going to run? Where are you going to be? And what are you looking for? And go through these in your head as you do them. Do some practice movements of a different phase. It might, the next phase might well be it's picked up and the tackle, the ball carrier is smothered and there becomes a maul. What are you looking for? Where are you going to move? Arm movements. Are you pushing people back on side with gestures as well as voice? Do you need to do that? So go through the first few phases. It'll get your mind focused for what you're going to see at the first kick. So with all that in mind, let's have a look in a bit more detail at a possible warm-up schedule that you might use. So firstly, we're going to find that area away from the teams that we said, somewhere between the two 10-metre lines across the halfway is always good. Start with some skipping and jogging, get the heart working a little bit, go from one 10-meter line to the others with a skip and a light jog back. Repeat that a few times, getting faster with your skipping and bigger strides, and even one where you skip backwards and then jog back to the start. Work off the ball of your foot with A steps. So A steps are where we come up with high knees and down, but we don't go onto our heels. We only use the balls of our feet. When we're walking or jogging, we actually don't use the same parts of our body, particularly our foot, as we do when we're running. When we're running, we're always on our toes, as people say, so we're working off the balls of our feet. And it's important in your warm-up that you keep that in mind. Look at doing some dynamic lunges where we're working the waist and the hips as well. So take a few steps forward, go down on one knee, but leave that bottom knee, the lower knee, slightly off the floor and twist towards that knee. Come up, take a few steps forward, go down onto the other side and again twist. Keep your hips straight and move your waist and your shoulders around it. Work on some high knees, so getting up really high and start to increase the frequency and your stride length as you're going through this. And then butt kicks. Get your hands behind your backside and kick your heels at them. You'll find that'll work your quads and your hamstrings as well. And again, we're doing all of this across that 20 meters with a jog backwards. We said focus on the problem areas. Now, some of the areas that referees really struggle with, particularly if you've sat in a car for a long time, is your hip flexing. So we're going to stretch the piriformis. That's what you can see there. We're going to almost lie down with our one knee in front of us. And the more that you can get that knee at 90 degrees, the more it will stretch the legs and the piriformis. Now, it's right up inside your backside, and you'll start to feel it stretch. When that's stretching, you then need to rock slightly sideways, backwards and forwards, just so that you can feel it pulling out. If you don't, it's one of the problem areas, like just sitting in the car for a long journey, that you will find will cause you an issue. Even top sprinters say they don't stretch their calves enough. This is really important. So we can do that and our hamstrings at the same time by doing a dynamic stretch. So a couple of paces forward, left foot out with your knee straight and your toes pointing upwards. Bend at the hips. So your knees are always close together, one foot underneath your backside, and we're going to use our arms to come along past the floor and up, a couple of steps out, and with the next one. And it's important you do this slowly. If you don't take this seriously, it has absolutely no benefit. So nice and slow, big movements to make sure that you are actually stretching the muscles that you want to. Another problem area for referees is often the Achilles. And this is because we tend to change direction quite quickly, sometimes in wet or muddy conditions where we push off with one foot, it doesn't quite dig in, and we really stretch that Achilles tendon. So we want a gentle warm up here and stretching on it, and even use some heel cushions in your boots. They're very invaluable. They just raise the heel slightly, which stops that over flexing of the Achilles. A good one here is on the stair. What we need to do is put our toes on the step and lean over the top, keeping the toes on. So that will stretch the Achilles. It doesn't feel like much to start with, but you need to repeat this 10 or 20 times in 2 sets, and that will help you no end with your Achilles as well. So just think of those, and you may have your own problem areas that you know you struggle with, and if you do, make sure that you're working on those too. So once we've done that, we now need to start increasing the intensity and the stride length over that 20 meters. So what we're going to do is start slowly, as we do with everything, to make sure that we are increasing the range of movement and stretching the muscles gradually. So we're going to build up our speed from a rolling start. That decreases the risk of an overstretch. Start from that jog, move up a gear, move up a gear, move down a gear, move down a gear, and jog back. We do it again and again until we're building up the speed. Through the gears, we might be starting in second or third gear now, going up a bit quicker, and we're going to slow down a little bit quicker as well. Until such time, after a few minutes of that we can then move on to static explosive speeds. These are the times where, cold day, you've not been moving for a bit because of an injury or a scrum or something, and all of a sudden you push off hard and you feel it go in the back of your leg. So these are high risk maneuvers, so we need to be ready for them and our bodies need to be ready. So we're going to go from a standing start. Now we know that most sprints in rugby games are between 5 and 15 metres. So we're going to use that 20 metre to start and slow down. So we go from a standing start, sprint now for 3 to 4 seconds, and then stop quickly. And then we're going to go back and do it again. And this time we're going to sprint for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then stop quickly. To such points as we've covered sort of 5 metre ones, 10 metre ones, 15 metre sprints, and in the end, just before we're ready to finish, we're going to make sure that we can do that 20 metres at full speed as well, with a quick stop at the end. So make sure that you're using those lines around the halfway. Think about your movement and your directions at a ruck and where you're going to go. So start visualizing what's going to happen, where you're going to start, how you're going to stop, what sort of movement sideways and backwards that you're going to take, arcs that you're going to run as well. Vary them all the way through this part of your warm-up. Make sure that you do turns whilst you're running and turns on the spot to go back the other way, and practice your get in, get out at the ruck. You need to find somewhere and move around. Visualize, as we said before, that start of the game. So do all the things that you're going to do dynamically in the game in this part of the warm-up. Now, we mentioned Hanbury training. Ross Hanbury is a personal trainer, works at Virgin Active. He also is very involved with England Rugby and the London Referee Society. If you have access to a computer, go and check out his YouTube channel. Just search for Hanbury Training on YouTube, and you'll find lots of videos there on strength and conditioning, pre-season training routines for referees, warm-ups for referees, and there's 3 really good ones: a low-level warm-up, an intermediate, and a sort of an expert one. And they are really useful resources. Now, Ross also will help you as much as he can with some personal training and in as much as training ideas and schedules. If you would like to do that, then please email him at ross.hanbury@virginactive.co.uk. You can contact him on Twitter and Facebook as well. Look for Hanbury Training. Or you can contact him through YouTube, but it is very, very useful, and we will show you one of his at the end of this video. So having done the warm-up and the mental prep and got our routine and things like that, it's important that we have a good recovery after a game as well. It's something that most people overlook. It's a quick shower, in the bar, have something to eat and drink, and chat to the captains, chat to the spectators and things like that. But it's really important that we follow a set recovery as well. The first thing is we need to make sure that we stay hydrated. We'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in a while, but during the game we've probably taken on electrolytes, isotonic drinks like Lucozade, things like that. It's important we also take on water as well. So any electrolytes or isotonic drinks that you've been having during the game, finish them off straight afterwards before you then go on to start taking your water for hydration. It's important we keep our nutrition up and balanced, rather than just pie and peas in the clubhouse afterwards. So we really now are replacing all of those things that we've lost. So we need to look at cereals, a cereal bar, a granola bar, absolutely brilliant and essential. Take a banana with you and chocolate or strawberry milk, something like that. Great for recovery after the game, and will fill your body with all the nutrients it needs to not just satisfy any hunger, but also to start repairing any damage that's being done too. Now, we also look at hydrotherapy, and we say we're going to take hot and cold showers. So what that means is, and I appreciate that most rugby clubs, you will struggle to get 3 drips out of the shower, or it will be at a set temperature that you can't change. But where possible, once you've cleaned off, we want to have quite a hot shower for about 3 or 4 minutes, followed by 30 to 60 seconds of cold, and if we can, we repeat that 3 or 4 times as well. Now, it's important that we also look at compression on the muscles. One of the best things that I ever invested in was a pair of compression tights, skins, as you and I would know them. Really, really essential. I used to wake up after a 2-hour drive home the next morning, and I'd be stiff when I got out of the car, but the next morning it would very, very difficult to get going again, particularly if I got another game or I was doing a recovery fitness session or run or something like that. After using these compression tights, though, I found that I could get out of the car after a journey home with feeling no effects, and the next morning it was almost as like I'd not done any exercise the day before. Really simple, but really effective. So if you can, get hold of some and use them as well. So we talked about hydration and how important it is. We must make sure that we are fully hydrated. So if we have a look at this against urine colour, we've got 3 different areas there. One where our performance is good, one where our performance is sort of maybe average, and another one where our performance is poor. And there's a guide there, as you can see, on how much hydration you need depending on the colour of your urine. So there's where our target is. We really want to be drinking enough through our exercise routine until our urine is clear. This is where we need to still sip water. It's a funny thing that we only feel thirsty when we need water and not before. So it's a conscious decision that we have to make to take on water little and often throughout a game, not just at half time. So how many of us have been there when there's a kick at goal, somebody bringing the tea on has offered us water, and we said, no, we're okay, thanks. Well, actually, it should always be a yes, thank you. Take some water on board, take little sips, just to maintain that fluid level. When we start getting into the middle section there, our performance may be affected. So we need to think about consuming some water. So 200 ml there, and then continue to sip little and often as per in the target area. If we went to the toilet and we saw our urine looking quite yellow, maybe even to the dark side, or going slightly orange. If it's going slightly orange, get to the doctor and ask for a glucose check for diabetes. But certainly, the darker it is, the more our performance is affected. In the worst cases, we will possibly experience some nausea, some headaches, and a dip in concentration levels. This happens, we probably don't feel like drinking that much, but we need to consume anything up to half a litre of water within the first half an hour, and then sip little and often, and keep monitoring your urine output as well. Keep taking on water until it's nice and clear. So there's actually a fluid intake guide for referees, for anybody doing any form of exercise. And it appears like this. So just to make it a bit more simple for us. So we're going to drink about half a litre of water 2 to 3 hours before we start exercising. That's to make sure that not just we've got fluid in our stomach, but we also start to, that will go into our tissues, into our muscles, some of it, and also it goes into producing blood as well. Then about 20 to 30 minutes before we start exercising, i.e. during our warm-up, we need to consume another 1/4 of a litre as well. So make sure that you've got this at the side with you when you're doing your warm-up. Make sure you've always got your own fluids so that you don't have to rely on anybody else. Take some to the side of the pitch if you're not coming in at half time, and make sure that you can always hydrate when you need to. So during that game, we're going to drink about 1/4 of a litre every 10 to 20 minutes. So we want a full water bottle of a litre really, and during the game we're going to keep sipping that as much as we can, taking on some more at downtime if that's an option, and also at half time. And then straight afterwards, once we've finished our electrolytes or isotonic drinks, we need to drink another 1/4 of a litre within the first 30 minutes after exercise. Now, that seems like a lot, and it is, but that's the rate at which your body will use water through sweat exercise, moving it around, keeping the muscles nicely hydrated as well. You need to think about your fluid intake. It increases your performance mentally. It will also increase your muscle performance because they're not drying out. So make sure that you stay properly hydrated through. Now, the RFU, in consultation with Liverpool John Moores University, published a wee while ago the England Performance Nutrition Considerations for Referees. Now, we're going to make this available as a PDF via the NLD Who's the Ref website, so that you'll be able to go through and have a look at it in your own time. So please do have a look out for that. And when that's launched on Who's the Ref, you will receive an email as well. So that's it for the video and the training. I hope that it's given you some food for thought at the very least, and it's going to help you with your refereeing. But we're now going to leave you with the warm-up video from Hanbury Training for Beginners. I hope you enjoy it.